Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to go from having nothing to suddenly owning everything? To wake up one morning poor and broken and by nightfall be the owner of a mansion so big it could swallow your entire neighborhood? Sounds like a dream, right? But let me tell you, sometimes dreams hide the darkest nightmares. And before I take you into mine, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now, hit that like button, and drop a comment, because what I'm about to share is the most chilling twist my life has ever taken. I never thought my life would change overnight. Growing up in the poorest corner of the city, I was used to cracked sidewalks, leaking rooftops, and the sound of police sirens lulling me to sleep. Owning anything more than a pair of clean shoes felt impossible. And yet here I was, holding a letter that promised me something no poor boy like me should ever dream of. A mansion. The envelope itself felt unreal. Thick. Expensive paper, golden ink letters that spelled my name, Samuel Carter. The lawyer's words echoed in my ears. You are the sole heir to the late Richard Blackwood's estate. Richard Blackwood. A man I had never even heard of. My mother's face went pale when I asked about him. Some doors should never be opened, Sam, she whispered, her voice trembling. But I was too blinded by the thought of finally escaping poverty to care. The very next morning, I stood inside a polished law office that smelled of leather and power. The lawyer explained, Richard Blackwood, my great-uncle, had passed away. No wife, no children. No heirs except me. Just like that, they dropped the keys to an estate worth millions into my hand. I should have felt grateful, right? But something about the way the lawyer avoided my eyes when he slid the contract across the desk made my stomach twist. Still, I signed. When I arrived at the mansion, my heart raced with excitement. The iron gates stood taller than any building in my old neighborhood, their design like black vines strangling each other. As they creaked open, I couldn't shake the feeling they were warning me, not welcoming me. The driveway stretched endlessly, lined with trees that leaned over like watchful guards. And when the house finally came into view, I swear to you, it didn't look like a home. It looked like it was waiting, watching. And listen, if you're still with me right now, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe, because what happened inside those walls, I wouldn't believe it myself if I hadn't lived it. The first step I took inside that mansion sent a chill down my spine. You'd think marble floors, golden chandeliers, and silk curtains would feel like a blessing to someone like me. But instead, it felt wrong, like the air itself was too heavy to breathe. The silence was alive, pressing in from every corner. I told myself it was just nerves. After all, who wouldn't be nervous stepping into a place this massive? But deep down, I knew something was off. The lawyer had mentioned a caretaker, an older man named Mr. Hensley, who would hand me the final documents. Yet when I called out his name, no one answered. My voice echoed back to me like the house was mocking me. The only sound came from the grandfather clock in the hallway, ticking louder than any clock I'd ever heard, each second like a warning. I wandered deeper inside, running my hand along the carved wooden railings. That's when I noticed something strange, family portraits on the walls. Dozens of them. Faces I had never seen before, dressed in old-fashioned clothes. Their eyes seemed to follow me as I walked past, and when I stopped to look closer, my stomach dropped. One of the portraits. It looked exactly like me. Same face, same eyes. But the painting had to be at least 100 years old. I froze, my hand shaking as I reached for the frame. This can't be real, I whispered. That's when I heard it, the faintest creak of a door upstairs. My heart jumped into my throat. I wasn't alone. Before I go on, if this story has you on edge right now, then make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that like button, because trust me, what I found in this house will haunt me forever. I called out again, louder this time. Mr. Hensley? Is someone there? No answer. Just the sound of footsteps, soft and deliberate, moving across the floor above me. Every instinct in my body screamed for me to leave, to run back down that driveway and never return. But greed, curiosity, maybe even pride kept me rooted to the ground. This was my mansion now, wasn't it? I climbed the staircase, each step groaning under my weight like it was warning me not to come closer. At the top, the air was colder, the shadows darker. And there, at the end of the hallway, stood a door, slightly open, a flicker of light slipping through the crack. My heart thudded so hard I thought it might give me away. I pushed the door open, and what I saw inside I'll never forget, it was a study. Dusty bookshelves lined the walls, the smell of old paper and something metallic hanging in the air. On the desk lay another envelope, just like the one that had brought me here. It had my name written across it, bold and deliberate. With trembling hands, I tore it open. The letter inside read, "Samuel, if you are reading this, then the house has chosen you. But beware, it never gives without taking." My stomach knotted. What did that mean? The house has chosen me? And what was it planning to take? Before I could think, the floorboards creaked again, this time right behind me. And if you want to know what stood there in the shadows, watching me as I turned around, make sure you're subscribed, because the nightmare was only beginning. I turned around slowly, my breath catching in my throat. The study was dim, but I could see the outline of someone standing there, tall, thin, motionless. My chest tightened as I whispered, "Mr. Hensley?" The figure didn't answer. Instead, the light from the desk lamp flickered, and for a split second, I saw its face. Pale, hollow eyes. A mouth stretched into something that wasn't quite a smile. And then, nothing. The shadow was gone, like it had melted into the walls. My hands shook so hard the letter nearly slipped from my grip. I wanted to run, but something about the words, "The house has chosen you," wouldn't let me. Chosen me for what? My mind screamed to get out, but my heart wanted to know the truth. I stumbled out of the study and down the hall, desperate to convince myself I was imagining things. That's when I saw another door, locked with a chain. Unlike the rest of the house, this one didn't look dusty. The brass handle gleamed like it had been touched recently. I tugged at it, but the chain held tight. My curiosity burned. What was being kept hidden in there? Or worse, what was being kept in? Before I tell you what happened next, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you dare spend even one night alone in this mansion. Because me? At that moment, I was starting to think I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. I decided to search for the caretaker. Maybe he could explain the letter, the locked door, the strange figure I'd seen. The mansion was massive, hallways that seemed endless, staircases twisting into shadows. As I searched, I noticed the portraits again, this time more carefully. And my blood turned cold. Some of the faces on the walls, they weren't strangers anymore. They were people I knew from the neighborhood, people who had gone missing years ago. I remembered the posters, the candlelight vigils, and here they were staring at me from centuries-old frames. "No," I whispered, backing away. "This isn't possible." But the more I looked, the more I recognized. Faces of classmates, faces of neighbors, people who had vanished without a trace. And the strangest part? None of them looked older than the day they disappeared. It was as if time had frozen them inside the paintings. That's when I heard it again. Footsteps. But this time they weren't upstairs. They were right behind me. And listen, if you're still with me right now, don't forget to subscribe and share this story. Because what I'm about to reveal next will keep you awake tonight. I spun around. Heart hammering, and standing at the end of the hallway was a man. Old, hunched, dressed in black. His eyes locked onto mine, and a crooked smile spread across his face. "Welcome home, Master Carter," he said softly. "We've been waiting for you." When the old man spoke, my entire body froze. His voice was raspy, like it had been dragged through decades of silence. "Welcome home, Master Carter. We've been waiting for you. I should have run. I should have bolted straight out of that mansion and never looked back." But the way he said it, the way he called me Master Carter, something in me needed answers. My throat felt dry as I asked, "Who are you?" He bowed slightly, his eyes never leaving mine. "I am Mr. Hensley, the caretaker of the Blackwood estate. I serve the house, and now I serve you." "Serve me?" The words felt heavy, dangerous. I clenched the letter still in my hand, the one that warned me the house never gives without taking. "What do you mean you've been waiting for me? I didn't even know Richard Blackwood. I didn't even know this house existed until last week." Hensley's crooked smile deepened, revealing yellowed teeth. "You may not know the house, but the house knows you. It always chooses its heir. Blood never lies. Blood." That word sent a chill through me. My mother's warning echoed in my head. Some doors should never be opened. I swallowed hard. "Why me? Why now?" Hensley stepped closer, his cane tapping against the floor with every step. Because it is hungry, Master Carter. It needs a keeper, a soul bound to its walls. Richard Blackwood served for 70 years, until the house finally took him. My heart stopped. Took him? Hensley's eyes darkened. The house sustains itself with life, with energy. It is not wood and stone. It is a living thing. It rewards those who serve it. Wealth, power, longevity. But it always collects its price. I shook my head. No, this is insane. You expect me to believe a house eats people? Not eats, Hensley corrected, tapping his cane. Consumes. It devours what you love most until nothing is left. And yet you will stay? Because you are already bound. I wanted to laugh, to call him a liar, but deep down, something inside me already knew he wasn't. The portraits, the letter, the figure in the shadows, it all made sense now. My voice cracked as I whispered, I didn't agree to this. Hensley chuckled, low and bitter. You agreed the moment you signed the papers. The contract was not for the estate. It was for your soul. I stumbled back, panic flooding me. My mind screamed at me to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The walls seemed to close in, the portrait's eyes burning into me. I felt trapped, like the mansion itself was breathing, pulling me deeper into its chest. And listen, if you're watching this right now, put yourself in my shoes. Would you run? Would you fight? Or would curiosity keep you there, just like it kept me? Tell me in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe, because this story is only getting darker. I found my voice, though it trembled. I'm leaving. Right now. I turned, bolting down the hall toward the staircase. But when I reached the grand front doors and yanked them open, my blood turned to ice. The driveway was gone. Instead of the long gravel path leading to the iron gates, there was nothing but blackness. Not night, not shadows, just endless, suffocating nothing. Like the world outside the mansion had been erased. I staggered back, my chest heaving. No, this can't be real. Hensley's voice slithered from behind me. You see now, Master Carter? There is no leaving. The house does not let go. Not until it has what it wants. Tears stung my eyes as I spun back toward him. Then what does it want from me? He tilted his head, his hollow smile returning. It wants everything. At that moment, the chandelier above rattled violently. The floorboards groaned like something massive was stirring beneath them. And from the walls, I swear I heard whispers, hundreds of voices, crying, screaming, begging. My stomach twisted. Were those the voices of the missing? Were they trapped inside these walls? I fell to my knees, clutching my head. This isn't happening. This isn't happening! But it was. And worse, I could feel something crawling into my chest, into my mind, whispering to me like a lover in the dark. A voice that wasn't mine, but lived inside me now. You belong to us, Samuel. You always have. And if you think that's terrifying, wait until you hear what I discovered in the locked room upstairs. Because that room held the truth about why the mansion chose me. But before I take you there, make sure you're subscribed, because once I open that door, nothing will ever be the same again. If you're still here, hit that subscribe button now and smash the like, because once I tell you what I found in that locked room, you'll understand why I begged for mercy and why the house didn't give it. I knew the locked room was the heart of it, the only place in the mansion that seemed to have a pulse. Every creak of the hallway, every whisper from behind the wallpaper, every glance from those painted eyes led me back to that chained door. After Hensley left me alone that night, or rather, after he glided away like a shadow reclaiming itself, I paced the corridors until my legs gave out. I tried to sleep on the velvet settee in the parlor, but sleep deserted me. The house hummed with a rhythm I couldn't match, and sometimes, when the moonlight slanted through the stained glass, I heard laughter that might have been 100 people or no one at all. At dawn, or what I thought was dawn, I forced myself up and hunted for a way into that room. The chain wasn't complicated. It was ceremonial more than anything, a length of old iron linked through an ancient padlock. The lock bore a crest I'd seen before in one of the portraits, a tree whose roots curled into hands. My fingers found the cold metal of the key on the mantelpiece where Hensley had left it the night before, just like he'd deliberately left it for me. My hands shook as I slid it into the lock. It turned with a hollow groan, as though the door itself exhaled when the chain fell away. When the door opened, the air that escaped was different. Not simply cooler, but thicker, as if it had weight. The room beyond was smaller than I expected. It was balanced between a nursery and a shrine. A single crib sat in the center, carved with the same root hands symbol, and around it, the floor was rimmed with jars. Each jar held something frozen in amber. A lock of hair, a tiny shoe, a ribbon, a toy soldier's head. I counted dozens. Each jar had a small label in delicate handwriting with a name and a date. Some dates were recent, some reached back decades. My eyes scanned the names until one stopped me cold. Samuel Carter, born 1997. My name on a jar. My hair inside, pale and perfectly preserved as if it had been cut and stored the moment I took my first breath. I stumbled backward, nearly toppling over a small wooden stool. How? The hair looked like my hair. There was no way. I picked up the jar, hands fumbling, lids cold against my skin. The label beneath my name had a second line. Bound. Claim sealed. Keep the light. Feed the dark. My mouth went dry. The crib was lined with old quilts patterned with faces, the same faces as the portraits. Faces of people who'd vanished. Faces of the family who had kept the house fed for generations. I realized then that the jars were not trophies. They were ledger entries, records. There was a desk against the far wall stacked with notebooks. I dragged one toward me, the leather cracked like old skin, and turned pages that smelled of dust and rain. The entries were written in the same precise hand, starting with dry facts and falling into fevered prayer. They described rituals, not of blood and knives like in movies, but of sacrifices that were measured and small at first, a missed visit, a forgotten birthday, a heartbeat lessened by grief. The house preferred slow hunger. It fed on absence. I read the ledger until the ink blurred. The handwriting changed in later entries, shakier, hurried. And then it stopped as if the writer had been interrupted. At the very back, under a folded page, I found a photograph. The photograph was black and white, edges worn, and it showed a family gathered in the parlor, Richard Blackwood at the center, flanked by women and men I recognized from the portraits. And in the foreground, small and barely visible, a child with my jawline and my eyes, except the child's face was half-shadowed, as though something had split his identity in two. Two lines of handwriting curled into the margin beneath the photo. One sentence was a prayer, the other a confession. We tied his name to the wall so he would never leave. We promised the house our forgetting. It accepted the vow. It took him like it takes all in Lowly. If a Carter ever claims the key, remember, roots that clutch will not release. Memory is a cruel thing when it comes with proof. I had always believed family was what kept us safe. I had always believed blood connected hearts. Here, in this room, blood was ledger and prison. The house had been creating heirs by trapping pieces of them in jars, by keeping threads of people that, when severed, made the house feel full. The word that kept echoing in my head was bound. I was not an owner. I was a node. A noise made me snap the book shut. Someone, not Hensley, not a resident, was singing softly in the hallway. The song was a lullaby I recognized from my childhood. My mother used to hum it when she rocked me to sleep during storms, but she was 3 hours away in our old building where the smell of fried onions still clung to the fire escape. She couldn't be here. I crept out into the corridor and followed the sound. It led me to the atrium where glass domes caught the morning light. There, seated on a wrought iron bench that might once have held a garden party, was my mother. She didn't look up when I stopped. She only rocked slowly, humming that same lullaby, and there was a softness to her gaze that made my chest ache. "Mama!" The word ripped out of me. She turned. The smile she gave me was wrong, too gentle, too exhausted. Her hand brushed the jar at her feet. Inside it was a small wooden carving, a tiny house like the one where we used to live. The label read, Home 2003, offered in full. "Sammy," she said, voice like a child's now. "You came," my knees buckled. "How are you here?" "How did you—" She lifted a hand like it was the simplest thing. "We came when the light went out," she said, eyes distant. "We sold what we had until there was nothing left but us, and then someone from the house offered help. The road felt smoother when people stopped asking questions. They gave us dinners, warm blankets, and promises I forgot." "I forgot so much, Samuel." A cold scream rose in my throat. "You forgot?" She nodded, hands folded like a prayer. I forget the cold nights. I forget the fights. I forget. Her voice broke and then steadied. I remember sitting here waiting for you. The house promised we'd be safe. It took pieces instead. It keeps them in jars, you see. It keeps memories like birds in a cage. I lunged forward, trying to shake her, to force her to remember the laundromat, the chipped plate we shared, the time I sold my shoes for bus fare, anything that tethered us to reality. She smiled as if I were a child showing her a drawing and whispered, You belong here now, Samuel. You will keep the house for us. You will feed it with what you love, and in return, it will keep us warm. No one had ever offered me a life like this and then said outright what the price was. The ledger had been explicit. Hensley had been explicit. The jars had been explicit. Now my mother, the woman who had always told me to run when things got strange, was telling me to stay. I didn't know how long I sat there, hands clamped over my mouth to quiet the howl building in my chest. The idea of feeding the house with my life, with my loves and losses, was a slow death. It would not be quick. It would be a sequence of small disappearances, a photograph misplaced, a call unanswered, birthdays missed until the day arrived and no one came. The house would be nourished on those small neglects and grow fat with our forgetting. You can change it, I said finally, desperate for some loophole. You can break the chain. We can leave. We can burn the jars. We can... My mother's eyes flashed then, not with recognition, but with something else. You think the house doesn't know. It chose you, Samuel. It knows the shape of your heart. It will find the cracks. When she said that, I understood the second twist. My inheritance was not an accident of bloodline. Someone had made sure I would come. Someone had stitched my life with threads that led straight to that mansion. The fact that my hair had been clipped and stored with my name on it suggested the house had been waiting long before I had even been born. If you're still listening and your skin is crawling like mine was, drop a comment right now telling me what you'd sacrifice to save someone you love. Don't forget to subscribe if you want me to keep going, because after what I did next, there was no turning back. I stood that night in the nursery, jars crowding me like accusations, and made a decision that felt like the last honest thing I could do. The house had bound me, but its rules were written by people who were still human enough to be outwitted. There was a way to break a vow, I thought. Not by bargaining, but by remembering aloud everything the house had hidden. I would force memory into its lungs. I gathered the jars, one by one, and began to speak the names written on them. I told the house the stories of the people inside, where they grew up, who loved them, how their laughter sounded. I called out faults and tenderness in equal measure. I spoke until my voice was hoarse, recounting birthdays, jokes, whispered secrets, painting lives with words so the house could not claim them as formless crumbs. At first, nothing happened. Then the temperature dropped until my breath made ghosts. The jars trembled. A whisper rose from the walls, at once furious and afraid. Somewhere behind me, a portrait fell, glass shattering across the floor as if severed from a lie. And then, a sound that was not the house's hunger but a human voice, my mother's voice, clear and fierce. Remember me, Samuel. Remember who I was, she did for a moment. Her eyes sharpened with clarity, and I saw a flicker of the woman who had once taught me to tie my shoes. For a second, the house recoiled like a beast slapped. It was then I realized the truth. Memory was not only the house's food. It was its weakness. The triumph was small and immediate. My mother hugged me like she had before all the forgetting, and for a split second, I thought we would be free. But as the portrait's broken glass glinted in the dim light, I felt something else settling over the mansion. A shadow deeper than the one we'd driven back. Hensley's cane clicked beyond the threshold, slow and patient, as if he had been waiting for me to try. You called its name, he said softly, not unkindly. You woke it. That was always the risk. And now? I demanded. My voice was more steady than I felt. Now, he said, it will bargain. Houses like it trade, a memory for a mercy, a laugh for a life. You can keep fighting, and you will win small battles, but every victory will cost you something you love. It always does. He lifted his hand, and from the shadow he produced a small key carved from the same root hands as the lock. "Keep this," he said. "It will open doors you were never meant to see. But remember, knowledge is a hunger of its own." The key fit into my palm as if it had been waiting for me. And in that moment I understood the final, crueler twist. Inheritance was not about wealth. It was about succession. The house needed a keeper who would be clever enough to feed it without noticing, kind enough to let it think it had won, and proud enough to refuse to leave. It needed a Carter. The key in my hand pulsed like it had a heartbeat. Cold at first, but the longer I held it, the warmer it became, until it felt as though it were fusing into my skin. I clenched my fist, desperate to stop the sensation, but it was too late. A bond had formed. I knew it. Hensley knew it too. I saw it in the flicker of satisfaction behind his hollow eyes. "You've been chosen, Samuel," he whispered, cane tapping once against the marble floor. The house does not give such gifts freely. "The key will show you doors. Doors most heirs never dare to open. But remember, every door has its price." I wanted to throw it away, to hurl it back into his face and scream that I wasn't anyone's heir. But when I looked at my mother, her hands trembling as she clutched her jar of memories, I couldn't. What if this key could unlock her freedom? What if it could undo the curse that had wrapped itself around us for generations? And listen, if you were me, holding that key with the chance to save the person you love most, would you use it? Tell me in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button, because this is where the nightmare truly began. That night, the house didn't let me rest. Whispers slithered through the hallways, pulling me from room to room. The portraits seemed to breathe, their painted eyes glistening wet as if they had been crying. I tried to cover my ears, but the voice inside my head kept whispering, "Use the key." At last, I found myself standing before a door I had never noticed before. It was smaller than the others, hidden behind a faded tapestry in the east wing. My hand shook as I brushed the fabric aside, revealing wood that looked fresh, not like the rest of the house, but alive, pulsing faintly as though blood ran beneath it. The key in my hand glowed faintly, pulling toward the lock as if it knew where it belonged. I hesitated. "What's behind this door?" I asked aloud, though no one was there, and then, faintly, my mother's voice echoed from the other side. "Sammy!" "Help me," I froze. She had been with me in the atrium earlier, lost but alive. How could her voice be here, behind this door? My chest ached. My mother never called me Sammy, except when she was afraid. My thumb brushed the grooves of the key, and I knew I was going to do it. The lock clicked open, and the door swung wide with a groan that echoed through the entire mansion. What I saw inside nearly drove me to my knees. The room wasn't empty. It was full of mirrors. Dozens of them, tall and small, gilded and cracked, covering every inch of the walls. And in each reflection I saw a different version of myself. One was older, with gray hair and tired eyes. Another was younger, a boy clutching a broken toy. Some versions were twisted, monstrous, with hollow faces and grins that stretched too wide. They all stared at me, every single one. Then, in the largest mirror at the center, I saw her, my mother. Not the fragile, broken version I had seen in the atrium, but my real mother, strong, eyes full of fire. She was pounding on the glass from the inside. "Samuel," she screamed. "It isn't me out there. That thing isn't me. Don't trust it." My heart stopped. "What? What are you saying?" "The house made her," she cried, voice muffled by the glass. "It made a version of me to keep you here, to keep you feeding it. I'm trapped in here, with the others. You have to get me out." My stomach lurched as the truth sank in. The woman I thought was my mother, the one who begged me to stay. She wasn't real. She was a puppet, a lure. The real one was imprisoned, her soul caught like a fly in amber. Suddenly, the other reflections of me began to move, pressing their hands against the glass. One by one, they started to whisper, "Choose, choose, choose." The mirrors rattled violently, cracks spreading like lightning across their surfaces. The floor beneath me shook, and I fell to my knees, clutching the key to my chest. I screamed, "How? How do I save her?" The largest mirror glowed, and for a split second, words appeared across the glass like frost forming on a window. Give what you love most, or lose what you have left. I stumbled back, my heart slamming against my ribs. What I loved most. Did that mean my mother? Or did it mean something else? My memories of her, my life outside these cursed walls, maybe even my own soul. The voices of the reflections grew louder, overlapping until it was deafening. Choose, choose, choose. I covered my ears, tears streaming down my face. And listen, if you're still here, tell me in the comments what you think I should have done. Would you give up everything you love for a chance to save someone else? Or would you walk away knowing the house always wins? I pressed the key against the glass. My reflection stared back at me, pale, shaking, eyes wide with fear. My mother's reflection pounded harder, her hands bloodied now. Please, Sammy, don't let it take me. Not like this. The mirror pulsed beneath my hand, the glass softening, rippling like water. And in that moment I knew, whatever choice I made, there would be no going back. But before I could decide, the largest reflection, the monstrous version of me with hollow eyes, reached out from the mirror and grabbed my wrist. The cold was unbearable. And that was when the house decided to show me what it truly wanted. The reflection's grip was ice, burning through my skin like frostbite. I screamed and tried to pull away, but its strength was inhuman. My body slammed against the mirror, and suddenly I wasn't in the mansion's hallway anymore. I was inside the glass. Darkness swallowed me whole. I gasped for breath, my chest heaving as though the air had been sucked out of my lungs. Then, faintly, light flickered, not from a lamp or candle, but from the fractured shards of thousands of mirrors floating in the void around me. Each shard held a reflection of myself, laughing, crying, screaming, bleeding. It was endless, a sea of me. And there at the center of it all stood the monstrous version of myself, hollow-eyed, grinning. His voice was my voice, but distorted, warped with echoes. Do you see now, Samuel? You don't inherit a house like this. You inherit yourself. Every heir becomes part of the mansion, piece by piece. And you were chosen because you already had cracks inside you. I shook my head, clutching the key in my fist like a lifeline. No, I didn't choose this. I never wanted any of it. The monster's grin widened. Didn't you? Think back. How many nights did you wish for more? More money, more power. More than that one-room apartment and a sick mother who couldn't even remember your name? The house heard you, Samuel. The house answers wishes. But every wish has a price. I felt my stomach drop. Was that true? Had I brought this on myself? I remembered the times I'd prayed, not to God, but to anyone listening, begging for a way out of my poverty. Had those prayers been answered by this cursed mansion? Don't listen to it, Sammy. My mother's voice broke through, faint but desperate. I spun and saw her again, trapped in one of the floating shards, pounding against the glass. Her face was streaked with tears. That thing is not you. It feeds on your doubt. Remember who you are. I pressed the key against my chest, trembling. What do you want from me? I shouted at the hollow-eyed reflection. It stepped closer, the void trembling beneath its feet. The same thing the house has always wanted. A keeper. A soul strong enough to bind the doors and hold the secrets. But strength comes from sacrifice. You cannot have both freedom and family, Samuel. You must choose. And listen, if you were standing here, trapped in a nightmare version of yourself, with your mother begging for her life on one side and the promise of unimaginable power on the other, what would you do? Drop a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss the next part of this journey. Because what happened next, even I wasn't ready for. The key in my hand pulsed violently, its glow stretching into a beam of light that connected two mirrors, one holding my mother, and one showing me standing tall, older, with the mansion behind me, as though I had accepted the inheritance fully. Two futures, two choices. My knees buckled as the void shook violently, mirrors shattering around me. Shards sliced my arms, blood floating in the blackness like crimson stars. The hollow-eyed reflection laughed, its voice thunderous. Choose, Samuel, save her. Or save yourself. Tears burned my eyes. I can't lose her, I whispered. Not again. My mother's reflection pressed her palms flat against the glass. You don't have to lose me, Sammy. You just have to be brave. Don't let the house win. But the other mirror, the one with the future me as master of the mansion, pulled at me with terrifying strength. It showed me wealth beyond anything I had dreamed. Power, influence, an escape from the poverty and hunger that had haunted every day of my life. I felt the temptation gnawing at me, wrapping its claws around my heart. The key trembled violently, demanding a decision. I screamed, "What do I have to give?" The answer came in both voices at once, my mother's and the monster's, overlapping, twisting, filling the void with a terrible truth. Everything. The void cracked apart, mirrors splintering, and I fell into blinding light, clutching the key as though it were the only thing keeping me alive. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the mansion, on the floor, bloodied, trembling, and in front of me stood my mother. But was it her, or the house's cruel imitation? Her lips curved into a smile I couldn't read. "Welcome home, Samuel." I couldn't move. My body was paralyzed between relief and dread. She looked like my mother. The same tired eyes, the same shaking hands, the same crooked smile she used to give me when I was a boy. But something in her stare, something was off. I whispered, "Mom?" My voice cracked, raw from screaming in the void. "Yes, Sammy," she said softly, stepping closer. "It's me. I'm here. You freed me." Her words should have brought comfort, but instead they felt like ice sliding down my spine. The way she said Sammy, it was too calm, too deliberate. The real her had been frantic, desperate. This version's voice was smooth, measured, almost rehearsed. I backed up, clutching the key tighter, my knuckles white. "If it's really you," I stammered, "tell me what you always said when I was afraid of the dark." She paused. For just a second, too long. Then she smiled faintly. "I told you the shadows can't hurt you. That you're stronger than they are." My breath hitched. That wasn't right. She'd never said that. She used to sit by my bed and whisper, "The shadows aren't real, but I am. And I'll never leave you." The woman standing in front of me tilted her head. The pause stretched. Her smile widened and widened until it was no longer human. Her jaw cracked, stretching impossibly. "So close, Samuel. You almost believed me." A scream tore from my throat as her face began to change, melting like wax under a flame. The skin sagged, the hair burned away, and what remained was a gray, eyeless figure, its mouth dripping black tar. It lunged forward, claws swiping at my chest. I rolled across the marble floor, barely dodging, my body aching with every movement. The key burned in my hand, glowing brighter than ever before, as though urging me to fight back. "Samuel!" A voice rang out, my real mother's voice, muffled but fierce. I turned and saw her again, trapped in the mirror on the far wall, pounding against the glass. "That thing isn't me." "Don't let it trick you." "Use the key," the monster hissed, its tar-filled mouth snapping open. "She'll never leave, Samuel. None of them do. You'll spend eternity here with me, with us, just like the others." And then I saw it, in the reflection behind the monster. Not just my mother. Dozens of souls, men, women, children, their hands pressed against the glass, their faces twisted with anguish. They were the ones I'd seen in the portraits. All the missing people. The mansion hadn't just swallowed their bodies. It had devoured their souls. My stomach turned. "You're feeding on them," I whispered. "You're keeping them here." The monster grinned with its gaping maw. "And you're next." It lunged again, and I raised the key instinctively. A burst of light exploded from it, slamming into the creature, hurling it across the room. The mirrors shook violently, cracks spreading across their surfaces. Souls screamed, their voices echoing through the mansion, filling my skull. I staggered toward the largest mirror, my real mother's hands reaching out to me from the other side. Tears blurred my vision. "Sammy, you can do this. The key can break the chains. But you have to give it something in return." "What? What do I give?" I shouted, my voice raw. Her face fell, sorrow in her eyes. "Yourself. A piece of you. That's the only way it works." I froze. Myself. That could mean anything. My memories, my soul, my life. And listen, if you were me standing there, would you risk everything for the chance to free her? Or would you run, leaving her behind forever? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because the choice I made changed everything. The monster screeched, pulling itself back to its feet. Its body twisted, growing larger, its claws scraping deep grooves into the marble floor. The souls in the mirrors wailed louder, begging for release. I pressed the key to the glass. It sank through as though the mirror were liquid. My mother reached forward, her fingertips brushing mine. The glow enveloped us both, and for one heartbeat, I felt hope. Then the monster slammed into me, its claws sinking deep into my side. Pain seared through me, and I screamed, collapsing to my knees. The key slipped, half inside the mirror, half in my bloody hand. The house shook violently, the walls cracking, dust raining down from the ceiling. The monster roared, dragging me backward while my mother's hand clung to mine from inside the glass. "Choose, Samuel!" she cried. "It has to be now." My vision blurred, the world spinning between light and shadow. My soul felt as though it were being ripped in two, and that was the moment I realized the mansion didn't just want my mother, it wanted me. The mansion trembled like a living beast, its heartbeat pounding through the floors and walls. Dust rained from the ceiling, mirrors cracked and splintered, and the monster's claws dug deeper into my side. My mother's hand gripped mine tighter from the other side of the mirror, her face twisted in terror. "Sammy, don't let go!" she cried. My blood dripped onto the marble floor, soaking into the cracks. The monster leaned close, its tar-stained breath hot against my ear. "She isn't worth it, Samuel. None of them are. You think you can save her? You'll die here, just like the rest." I wanted to scream back, to tell it I didn't care, that I'd rather die fighting for her than live as a prisoner to this cursed house. But in that moment, my strength was fading, my body trembling. The key flickered in my hand, its glow dimming, as though it could sense my hesitation. The monster hissed, dragging me away from the mirror. My mother's face disappeared into darkness, her screams muffled. My heart shattered. "No! Don't take her from me!" I roared, using every ounce of strength left to slam the key into the monster's chest. Light exploded, blinding. The creature howled, a sound that rattled the windows of the entire mansion. Its body convulsed, tar spewing in all directions, burning like acid when it hit the floor. I collapsed onto my knees, coughing, my vision spinning. And listen. If you were here, standing in a house that wanted to eat you alive, holding a key that demanded the ultimate price, would you pay it? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and like this video, because the next choice I made sealed my fate. The monster staggered back, but it wasn't gone. It grinned, its hollow eyes glowing red. "You can't kill me, Samuel. I am you. I am every heir who came before you. And when you give the house what it wants, you'll become me too." My chest tightened. My breaths came shallow, ragged. He was right. Part of me already felt tied to the mansion, like invisible threads wrapping around my soul. I looked down and realized the key wasn't just glowing anymore. It was bleeding. Dark red veins snaked up my hand, crawling toward my arm. The price was already being claimed. "Sammy, fight it!" My mother's voice came again, clearer now. The mirror flickered, her face shining through. "You're stronger than it? You don't belong to this place." Tears streamed down my face. "I don't know how to fight it, Mom. It's inside me already." Her hand pressed against the glass. "Then give it something else. Give it what it wants most." I froze, staring at her. The words carved themselves into my mind like fire. What it wants most. The house didn't just want blood. It didn't just want fear. It wanted my heart, my memories, my very soul. That was the true inheritance. The monster lunged, claws tearing across my chest. Pain ripped through me, but in that agony came clarity. I raised the key high and screamed, "If it wants me, it can take me!" The light from the key blazed brighter than ever before, forcing the monster to recoil. The mansion wailed, the walls splitting wide, portraits crashing to the floor. The souls in the mirrors screamed, their voices a chorus of suffering and hope. For a heartbeat, I felt all of them. Their lives, their pain, their desperate longing for freedom. And in that heartbeat, I understood the truth. The mansion wasn't alive because of the monster. It was alive because of them. Every soul it had trapped, every heir it had claimed, every memory it had stolen. They were its lifeblood. The key trembled violently in my hand, burning hotter and hotter. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Sammy, no. Don't give it everything, you'll disappear. I met her gaze and whispered, I'd rather disappear than live without you. And listen, if this were you, standing here, would you give yourself up to save the person you love most? Or would you hold on to your own soul, even if it meant condemning them forever? Think about it and drop your answer in the comments. The light consumed me, searing through my veins, pulling pieces of me away. I felt my memories slipping. My first day of school, the sound of my mother singing in the kitchen, the night we lit candles when the power went out. One by one, they were ripped from me, swallowed by the mansion. The monster roared in triumph, but as it reached for me, its body began to crack, splitting apart like shattered stone. The souls screamed louder, their chains snapping, the mirrors bursting into shards of light. The mansion groaned, its heartbeat slowing. My knees buckled and I collapsed, barely conscious. The key fused into my palm. The last thing I saw was my mother stepping out of the mirror, her face bathed in tears, reaching for me with trembling hands. Then, darkness. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the floor of the atrium. The mansion was silent, the portraits gone, the mirrors shattered. My mother knelt beside me, holding me, her warm tears falling on my face. You did it, Sammy, she whispered. You freed us. But deep inside, I knew something was wrong. My body was here. My mother was here. But part of me was still inside the house, and I could feel it waiting. At first, it felt like peace. My mother's arms wrapped around me, the weight of her presence grounding me after the storm. For the first time in what felt like centuries, I could breathe without hearing the house whisper in my ear. But the silence was wrong. The mansion no longer groaned, no whispers slid through the cracks, no footsteps echoed across the halls. Yet in that silence I felt something stirring inside me, a hollow space, a hunger. I pushed myself up, trembling, my chest still burning where the monster's claws had ripped through me. My mother touched my cheek, her eyes wet with tears. You saved me, Sammy. You saved all of us. And then I saw them. Figures emerging slowly from the shattered mirrors, their faces pale but alive. The souls that had been trapped were free. Men and women I half remembered from missing posters. Children clutching each other, even strangers I had never seen before. They all stared at me, gratitude shining in their eyes. Some whispered my name. For a moment I felt like a hero, like maybe the suffering had been worth it. But then, the ache inside me grew sharper. My hands trembled, the veins on my arms glowing faintly red. The key was gone, absorbed into me, but its weight remained, pulsing in my chest like a second heart. And listen, imagine surviving something like this, only to realize you might have become the very thing you destroyed. What would you do? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because what I discovered next nearly broke me. One of the freed souls, an old man with hollow eyes, shuffled closer. His lips quivered as he whispered, It's not over. You've taken the house into yourself. You're the keeper now. My throat closed. No, I muttered, shaking my head. No, I destroyed it. I freed you. He raised a trembling hand and pointed at my chest. The house doesn't die, boy. It moves, it chooses, and it chose you. The others began to murmur, their voices overlapping. Some in gratitude, some in fear. My mother tried to silence them, pulling me close, but their words cut deep. My skin prickled as if insects crawled beneath it. I heard faint whispers again. Not from the mansion's walls this time, but from inside my own skull. Feed us. I staggered back, clutching my head. No, I won't. The old man's eyes softened, but his voice was firm. You will. Sooner or later, the house always gets fed. The freed souls faded like mist, vanishing into the air, leaving only me and my mother in the broken atrium. She gripped my shoulders. Don't listen to them, Sammy. You're stronger than this place. You're stronger than it. But even as she spoke, I saw her expression falter. Just for a second, like she was afraid of me. That fear cut deeper than any wound. Mom, I whispered. You believe me, right? You believe I'm still me? She forced a smile. Of course I do. You're my son. but her eyes darted toward the red glow still pulsing faintly beneath my skin. I didn't know what to believe anymore. We stumbled out of the mansion together, the cold night air hitting me like a slap. The sky was the same as before, stars scattered like diamonds, the moon watching in silence. For the first time, I was outside the mansion's walls, free, and yet, as I looked back, the house was still there, cracked, broken, but standing. Its windows glowed faintly as though eyes were watching me leave. I turned away, vowing never to step foot inside again. But even now, as I tell you this, I hear the whispers inside me. Sometimes they're faint, like a breeze. Other times they're loud enough to drown out my thoughts. And last night I dreamed of the mansion. Not in ruins, but whole again. Waiting, calling. And when I woke up, there was dust on my shoes. The same marble dust from the atrium floor. So tell me, do you think I ever really left? Or did I bring the mansion with me? Drop your thoughts in the comments because maybe, just maybe, this story isn't over. And if you're still listening, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video because the next chapter of this nightmare might be darker than anything you've heard so far. For weeks, I tried to live like nothing had happened. I found a small apartment with what little money I had far away from the mansion and told myself it was over. The souls were free. My mother was safe. I was done, but the whispers never left. At first, they were faint, like echoes drifting through a dream. Feed us. I could drown them out with noise, with distractions. But then strange things began to happen. Doors in my apartment would open on their own. The lights would flicker, not with electricity, but with that same pale glow I had seen inside the mansion. And sometimes when I looked in the mirror, it wasn't me staring back. It was him, the hollow-eyed version of myself, grinning. My mother noticed, too. She tried to hide it, but I caught her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. The fear in her eyes was back. She wouldn't stay in the same room at night. She started locking her bedroom door. One evening, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, hands trembling, eyes red from crying. She whispered, "Sammy, I don't think it ever let you go." I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong. But deep down, I knew she was right. The house hadn't stayed behind. It had come with me. It had burrowed inside my blood, my bones, my soul, and listen. Imagine surviving a nightmare, only to realize you are the nightmare now. Would you fight it, or would you give in? Drop your answer in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe, because the way this ends, you won't believe it. That night, I woke up to whispers louder than ever, crawling beneath my skin. My body moved before I could stop it. I stood in front of the mirror, staring into my reflection. My hollow-eyed double stared back, grinning wider than ever. "It's time," it whispered. "You are the house now. Feed us!" I screamed, slamming my fist into the glass, but instead of breaking, the mirror rippled. My reflection's hand reached out, grabbing mine, just like before. My mother burst into the room, crying out my name. I turned to her, tears streaming down my face. "I'm sorry, Mom," I whispered. "I can't stop it." Her eyes filled with terror. "No, Sammy, fight it. You're stronger than this." But the truth burned inside me. I wasn't. The mansion wasn't a place anymore. It was me. The mirror swallowed me whole, dragging me back into the void. My mother's screams echoed, fading into silence. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in the atrium again. The mansion whole, perfect, waiting. Portraits lined the walls, and there, freshly painted, was my face. My hollow-eyed smile staring down at anyone foolish enough to enter. I finally understood the truth. No one ever really escapes. The mansion doesn't end. It just moves, taking root in the next heir, the next soul foolish enough to claim it. And now, it lives through me. So if you ever hear about a poor boy who inherited a mansion, don't go looking for me. Don't step through those doors, because the house is waiting, and it's always hungry.